Agenda is approval 2023. What is your wish? It's moved and second. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Approval. First item on the agenda is item number 27, PLN 21-009, FH Development Group, Inc., supplementary report on emergency access. Debbie.
So at the June meeting, East Hants Council expressed concerns that the emergency egress/ingress for the proposed FH Development Group, Inc. application site in Milford. As part of the development agreement negotiations and other master plan communities in East Hants, developers have been able to negotiate for a minimum of 300 dwelling units on one access prior to a second road connection being required. However, after the Halifax wildfire events that took place in May, Council passed motion C-23-210 that Council directs staff to discontinue allowing developments to exceed the 100 unit minimum before requiring a second entrance exit when negotiating development agreements prior to coming to Council. So in response to Council's motion, FH Development Group Inc. has requested that Council consider an emergency access point from the higher density development area C, that's right here, along a new proposed access point through the proposed commercial lands area B and onto Highway 2. So under the proposed application concept plan, there are proposed to be apartment buildings on area C here of a total of 196 dwelling units. So the proposal is to create this access point that would allow for an emergency access out the back and through the commercial lands, be here, and then on directly onto Highway 2. So this here just gives you shows you the concept plan. So again, this is area C. It'll go along the back of the stormwater management pond there and through B onto Highway 2. This would enable that the new road that's will be constructed to allow them to have 100 dwelling units back here, and these would be townhouses or semi-detached that would be able to access the Highway 2 directly that way. It would also allow, in a situation if this access here was blocked, that the people living back here, the residents here, could be funneled through Area C and then through the emergency access point through Area B and onto Highway 2. So this is phase one here. So once the new road to Armco lands is built and constructed and goes down to Highway 2, the rest of phase one could then be constructed. So therefore, they would be able to do the 100 units with the one new road through the townhouses and semis, and then with this site here, Area C, they'll be able to do the apartment buildings and then have the emergency access in the back to allow those folks to get out if the situation arised. And that second access point would be secured by registered easement and would be maintained through the winter months. If Council accepts the access approach outlined in the supplemental staff report, the emergency access point will be added to the draft development agreement for Council's consideration at the public hearing. And the recommendation is that recommend that the alternative emergency access be accepted for Area C. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Just before I go to Council, I forgot to welcome Candace and Sam. Glad you can make it. Senator Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm just wondering, so like I've noticed on the Hammond Plains Road, where the area of the wildfires were, that I believe in 3 different areas they have, well, one in particular is an emergency exit that is constructed but actually blocked off. Is that just, it could be accessible if necessary?
Yes.
But it's not an area where traffic goes. So that's what you're talking about when you say emergency?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Green.
I would move the recommended motion. Second.
Moved in second. On before the motion, Madam Warden.
Oh, just a quick question. If it's going to be blocked off, how does it get unblocked in an emergency for people to get out?
You could do that through a variety of different means. Just because there's a gate across it doesn't mean it has to be blocked if you wanted to use the gate approach, or they could use a flexible bollard, so in an emergency situation, you just drive over the bollards because they're actually flexible, they just go down. So you could do something like that. We would have it written into the development agreement such that that would have to be accessed at any point in time, but it just wouldn't, it wouldn't be.
You couldn't wait for someone to come and
Come and
unlock and
unlock it,
open
yeah.
the gate?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Madam Warden?
That's it.
Thank you. It's moved in second. What is your wish? Question being called. We'll go to the vote. And the votes, motion's passed, 12-1, with Councilor Rhino voting nay. Thank you, Debbie. Second item on the agenda is a Cottage Country unsubstantiated amendment to existing development agreement. Time limits, back to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant is 323-0225 Nova Scotia Limited, and that's Cottage Country. The PID is identified here, outlined in red, and it's located in the villages along Lake, East Uniacke. The size of the property is 88.61 hectares. Neighboring zone, it's zoned Rural Comprehensive Development District, the same with, sorry, I lost my mouse, the same with the neighboring lands here. There is some open space land that's owned by the municipality, and then there's one parcel of rural use land that you can see down here. The proposal is to amend the time limits for the portion of Cottage Country that is not currently part of Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 6. And so Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 6 is this part of the villages along Lake, and Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 12 is up here, and it's Village 1 and Village 2. So on January 8th of 2013, the numbered company owned by Cottage Country entered into a development agreement with the municipality of East Hants to permit a residential condominium community located in East Hants. Under Part 12 are the time limits for the completion of the development. 10 years have now passed and the residential condominium community is not complete. Municipal Council now has the ability to review the agreement, and the developer has requested that the time limits be extended in accordance with Part 11 amendments of the agreement. So this is the area still to be developed where the amending agreement will be applicable. So the other agreements on here would not be amended because essentially those have been created into the condo corporations and their condominiums has been declared, and our open space, again, has been provided to us. So it's just where there has not been development occur yet. Eventually, this area here will be added into Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 6. And this here is just from the condo declaration, and it shows the area that's in the darker black is what has been developed or approved already, and the lighter color here, gray, is just still the area to be developed. So the Villages along Lake is a bare land condominium development allowing for a total of 401 dwelling units. Village 1, that's the number 6, currently has 74 dwelling units and still the majority owned by Cottage Country. Village 2, which is the Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 12, currently has 55 dwelling units and is run by a condo board. As the subject lands continue to be developed, they will be incorporated into Village 1. There are a number of items to be completed in regard to trails, open space, and signage within Hants County Condominium Corporation 6 and 12. Completion of these items is currently underway, and staff are working with the developer and Hants County Condominium Corporation Number 12 to have these items completed. Development not completed, so we're not surprised that the entire Bearland Condominium Corporation is not completed at this point in time. 10 years was an aggressive timeline for such a large development for that area. Policy analysis. So based on the applicable sections of the Municipal Government Act, the current development agreement, and the policies contained in the municipal planning strategy, staff have concluded this application be identified as an unsubstantial amendment. Amendments to those items in a development agreement not considered substantive do not require a public hearing. Any future development areas or changes to the type of development permitted by the existing agreements will require a separate planning application. And extending the timelines does not change the development pattern, the number of dwelling units, or the type of development that was approved in 2013. So the only change is actually to the time identified within that development agreement. Staff feels that the change to the time limit should be permitted and that the extension be added until January of 2028. And the recommendation is approve the unsubstantial development agreement amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Deputy Warden Perry.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion as presented. I don't believe 5 years. I think we should only make it 2. The reason for that is the current development that's going on. He's operating his own quarry in there. There's lots of blasting that's happening, and it's really been, from the whole time, disrupting the residents of that area as well, including the residents that currently live there. So the faster he gets it finished, the faster that stops. So I think by making it two years, it gives him time to get on with it, continue the development, and then it moves into the next council, and we'll see after 2 years how that development has gone, and he can apply for another extension at that point. I think 5 years is just a little too long. So I would move the recommended motion.
We have no motion on the floor
No,
yet.
I'm going to move the recommended motion, but amended
Okay.
to, I think it's 2025 or 2026. What would it be, depending upon, 'cause this comes into effect in January 24 or 23?
It's so it's just moving the date. So it's January 2023. That was when it came into effect. So
So this has been out of,
it's actually 4.5 years is what it ends up.
so this should have been, like, this expired this past January, like
Yes,
10
yeah.
months ago, or 9 months ago, roughly.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll say to 2026. That gives enough time for it to be midterm of the next council, and the area councilors will have a better idea of what's going on and be able to approach it then, especially with the rapid things that are changing with climate change and everything in that area. So I will move the recommended motion until January 2026.
A seconder? Second by Council Musa. Any discussion?
Question.
Question be called on the motion, on the amendment? Oh, a motion. And the motion is passed 12-1 with Councillor Hebb voting nay. Is that it? Thank you, Debbie. Next item on the agenda is PL 23-004, Carl Angel. Amendments to the MPS and LUB. Final report, Rachel. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the subject property is located at 25 Burgess Road in Shubenacadie, and it's currently zoned rural use. And there's an area of high-risk floodplain to the front of the property. You can see in this colour here. And this small area is moderate risk floodplain. And the purple boundary line there is the extent of the Shubenacadie Growth Management Area. So there is an existing 2-unit residential building on the property that was constructed in 2019. And despite being outside the GMA, this building has municipal pipe services, which is due to historical servicing of a dwelling on the property. There is approximately 47 metres of frontage on Burgess Road, and there is an easement across the property to provide access for this property here and for this piece of land. And also just to note that this property here, this also has municipal pipe services. Just taken some photography of the property, and you can see this is the existing two-unit building, and the applicant has suggested that he wants to construct a similar style of building on the property. So the applicant wants to construct an additional two-unit building, and he plans to subdivide his property to create that additional lot. The rural use zone permits two-unit residential buildings. However, the frontage required is a minimum of 30 meters. But in the R2 zone with services, the minimum lot frontage is 18 meters. So right now, with the RU zone, he couldn't actually subdivide the property to provide that additional lot. But if he was to rezone the application to the property to R2, he would have enough frontage to subdivide the property, provided that municipal pipe services were provided. So to enable this, an amendment to the Schumann-Ackley Growth Management Area is also proposed. So there's 3 elements to the application. It's to redesignate from rural use to established residential neighborhood designation, rezone from rural use to 2-dwelling unit residential, and amend the growth management area boundary to include the application property. So this will just, I'll show you on the map here. This is the proposed zoning. You can see the boundary will extend from here and will include the property boundary. The growth management area for Schumann-Ackley is the area where municipal water and wastewater services are available. The pipes do extend outside the growth management area along Burgess Road and across the frontage of the property. So right now the pipes actually extend to the edge of Burgess Road just here. So policy GM13 of the municipal planning strategy indicates that council shall establish the growth management area as a serviceable boundary for the community of Schumann-Ackley. Municipal pipe services, as I mentioned, are already provided due to the historical servicing of a single unit dwelling located at the same property. So for expansions to the growth management area, there is policy in the municipal planning strategy, which is GM27, and that requires an evaluation of the financial, social, environmental, and agricultural implications, and evaluates whether it's in the best interest of the municipality to do so. So staff have provided an analysis of GM27, that's in the staff report. The conclusion from planning staff is that due to the size, scale, and existing provision of services, that the small expansion of the GMA will have minimal impact on the financial, social, environmental, and agricultural implications. And just a note here that if the application is approved, a permit cannot be issued until the wastewater treatment facility is in operation, as the current facility is at maximum capacity. So the amendments proposed by this application are consistent with the community priorities, and specifically number 5 and number 8. And number 5 is develop in a manner which is compact, environmentally and fiscally sustainable. And number 8 is allow for a range of housing options appropriate to each neighborhood's form and intensity. There are no specific policies dealing with a redesignation and rezoning from rural use to the residential designation zone. However, there are some general policies in the municipal planning strategy, and those analysis of those have been provided in the staff report. Overall, planning staff consider that the R2 zone is appropriate in this location due to the fact that there is an existing 2-unit dwelling on the property. And if a new 2-unit dwelling is constructed after subdividing the property, it will have minimal impact on the surrounding area. Council's decision on this application is not appealable to the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board. So a public information meeting was held on June the 6th, and notes of that meeting are included in the staff report. There were no comments or questions regarding this application from the public. Following first reading, questionnaires were mailed to property owners within 300 meters, and there were 29 questionnaires mailed. We received 3 return questionnaires, and all 3 of those confirmed they have no objections. And a notice will be placed in the Chronicle Herald on the 13th and 20th of September editions. And then also a letter will be mailed to property owners within 300 meters, just confirming details of the public hearing. So due to the size, scale of an existing provision of services, the small expansion of the GMA will have minimal impact on the financial, social, environmental, and agricultural implications. So planning staff consider that the application will also have minimal impact on the surrounding area and recommending approval. And you can see here on the chart that we're at staff evaluation. The public hearing has been scheduled for next week. And the recommendation is that second reading and approval be given to the MPS and LUB amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Nobody wishing to speak? Counselor Green,
Motion.
moved in second.
Question.
Question's being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion's passed unanimously. Thank you, Rachel. Last item on the agenda for planning advisory is Mount Uniac Quarry expansion, environmental assessment, comments. Mr. Woodford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's interesting. So the Mount Uniac Quarry is applied to the province for an expansion, and staff prepared, there was an opportunity for consultation. So staff had prepared draft comments to go back to the province, so that's the gist of the report. And we have until September 28th, which is the day after council, so we'll have an opportunity to submit those before the deadline. And then the decision-making process, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change will decide if the project can be granted conditional EA approval on or before October 18th. So, and the quarry's looking for an expansion to go from their current 4 hectares up to 40, so quite a large expansion, to allow for the continued production and stockpiling of aggregate used in a wide variety of local construction and infrastructure projects. The project's lifespan is estimated somewhere between 30 and 50 years of continued production of 30 to 50,000 tons annually. The access to the quarry is currently off the Uniac Mines Road, and that is expected to continue. And the expansion is taking place entirely within the property currently owned by Northumberland Capital, the current quarry operator. There are no residential structures within 1.7 kilometers of the existing quarry face, and the closest residential structure to the perimeter of the subject property would be just over a kilometer, 1.16. So the on this map here, the outline in the dash black shows the current approved quarry, and I'm not sure when the photo was taken, but the working face appears to be at least halfway through that property now. So they're applying to expand that to the outline in red, the full 40 hectares. So the letter that staff prepared, a number of concerns were outlined. The first being traffic. So increased truck traffic is a concern that it's been identified by residents of Mount Uniac. The municipality shares their concerns about the impact of the truck traffic may have on a growing community. And although development is not currently proposed for the Uniac Mines Road in that area, staff have been in discussions with some property owners who have frontage on both Uniac Mines and Old Mines regarding extensive future development. And between 2016 and 2021, Mount Uniac and the surrounding communities did grow by over 5%, so we know more is to come. And that trend will continue as we know about all the development that you've seen in terms of applications that we're seeing at the staff level as well. So in order to address future growth in the area, East Hants will be undertaking a secondary planning strategy to help direct growth, and we'll mention that to the province. East Hants has also received some complaints about the existing Mount Uniac quarry that are typically related to the speed of trucks leaving the quarry. And we highlight that safe driving practices should be discussed with truck drivers, and the company that operates the quarry should be held responsible for ensuring that haulers treat the roads and communities with respect. The second concern involves surface water. So under their industrial approval, monitoring is required to ensure that water exiting the quarry's settling pond meets specified water quality parameters. However, as the size of the quarry increases and more extreme weather events take place, East Hants does have concerns with the accuracy and timeliness of the testing. We also asked some questions in the letter. whether there are plans in place to address extreme rainfall events, such as we saw this summer, and whether the settling ponds are designed for 1 in 100-year rainfall event, or to what standard they were designed, and how they fared in this most recent summer of heavy rain, and whether there was an inspection done to ensure there's no damage, and also whether or not the size or the number of settling ponds will increase as the quarry expands. Another concern related to the contamination of the headwaters of the Sackville River, obviously an important environmental area, and the municipality owns 300 acres nearby. The next concern related to noise and blasting. With increased development in the Uniacke area and an increase in the quarry size, staff expect that there may be increased noise-related complaints concerning future blasting. And it's obviously understandable that blasting has to take place. It is a quarry. But would encourage the quarry to continue to be mindful of when blasting takes place and the impact that it may have on residents in the area. And I should also note that blasting at quarries is not covered by the bylaw that council approved a few months ago. In terms of land use regulation, pits and quarries are regulated by the provincial government, but any structures associated with the pits and quarries are required to be compliant with both our land use bylaw and the building code. And the quarry is zoned rural use, which requires that any structure closer than 1 kilometer to the nearest non-resource related structure requires a development agreement. And that structure, any structure further than 1 kilometer from the nearest non-resource related structure only requires a development or building permit. So currently it appears that they wouldn't need a DA for anything on that site, but as development gets closer, they may in the future require a development agreement. The proponent should contact the municipality prior to siting of any structure to determine the applicable regulations. So that was a summary of the letter, and the recommendation is to review that draft letter and direct staff to submit comments to the Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change if you're satisfied with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Deputy Warden Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can tell you without a doubt, I receive more calls with complaints to quarry blasting in my district than anything else, than speeding, than ATVs, or anything like that. It is right in the heart of a community. The blast shakes the school, which is more than 1-point-something kilometer away. It's not even on the picture diagram that showed there. Things are falling off people's walls even further away. They understand there's supposed to be about 10 to 15 years of aggregate with the current approval. And most people in the community were just saying we're going to count down 10 to 15 years. The quarry will be gone and we'll be able to live in peace without fear of losing our wells. Like, that's the biggest thing is this expansion. I'm all for development and I'm all for business people doing it. But if everybody there was on water and sewer, there's no issue. A blast not only can fracture the water vein, it can then, wells that never had arsenic can develop arsenic because it changes what happens underground. Wells and septics are two things that can be greatly affected by this. And like I said, homes are shaking 3 kilometers plus away from this. The picture, it's right in the center of the community. As Mount Uniacke grows, over the next 50 years, right, you'll either stop growth or it's going to make it hard for people. The people who live currently on Uniacke Mines Road, Sawdust Lane, Coscombe Lake Road, they cannot let their children bike to school or even go for a bike to the end of the road to cross over to the Uniacke trails because of the large number of truck traffic. People are used to construction for a short period of time, but when it's running every day, and they were told when the quarry went in, it would be 5 to 10 vehicles a day, and the counters are getting 30 to 40 a day already at peak times. It's something I think the province made a mistake on, approving a quarry that close to residential areas. And I can tell you, once that hit the newspaper, my phone was ringing off the hook from everybody who lives on Coscombe Lake Road, Sawdust Lane, and Partridge Lane. Because when they pull out of there, to go to work in the morning and the trucks are barreling down on that gravel road, it's scary for the residents who live there, plus the people on Uniac Mines Road whose driveways go directly out there. You go there in the summertime and people's lawns are gray from the dust off the road going completely on the lawn, clogging their heat pumps and everything else. So it's, you know, I don't think it should have been put there in the first place. It's too close to people, and it can have a dire impact on many residents, not just now, but if it goes for 30 to 50 years, for the whole community, for 2 generations. That's 2 generations, 50 years. So my residents spoke loud and clear to me. They are 100% against this expansion. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, hearing that, I wonder if the committee would like me to put a stronger statement in about the blasting and mention that it can be felt up to 3 kilometers away, and also mention the dust.
It's even more than that. Like, you know, the blast goes off and you don't even see it, but the Legion shakes. I have people at the Legion telling me they have pictures falling off the memory wall, right? My house is even further away, and I've had things fall off during some blast. So it's the provincial regulations and the monitoring of 700 meters and the testing devices that go out are there, and they measure it. But anything beyond that 700 meters, they're not responsible for, right? So if something happens, or if the well if they do a blast there, the community is bedrock. It's one big chunk of rock. The blast there can have an effect kilometers away, and they're legally not responsible because it's past what the environment regulations are. It's just too bad, so sad. That's already happened to residents in Councillor Moose's district from the quarry in Beaverbank. Too bad, so sad. Had a well for 30 years, never went dry. Blasting happened, they got no water. And nobody's there, because how do you prove it? Because nobody gives notification when the blasting's gonna happen. There's no regulations, there's no anything that informs the public. It's in the middle of a residential area. The expansion to 10 times the size should not be allowed. You know, if you ask every resident of Mount Uniac in my district, they would probably request it to be shut down. That's not gonna happen. We need aggregate, we need things to move forward. But doing it 10 times the size, now you're moving that blast closer and closer. If you look at the edge, once they get to the edge of blasting at that edge, and people are already having home shake away, and now they're only a kilometer away, it's gonna be 10 times worse. And the truck traffic isn't gonna slow down. There'll be no relief. I bet you development will stop in that area because of that. And that's the last thing we need in a housing shortage, is to cut off available lands to be developed close to urban center like Halifax.
Is that all, Deputy? Thank you. Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So sometimes items come before us where we kind of, in my case anyway, that I really rely on the councillors of the area to let me know how residents who are going to be directly impacted by our decisions, how they feel about it. And I just got that from Deputy Warden. So in something that definitely isn't going to affect me, but it's certainly going to affect his residents. So I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, the decision before PAC today is what comments you want to send forward to the province. We don't control this process. This quarry will not be approved or rejected by the municipality. It's a Minister of the Environment that decides. Our only ability is to provide comments on what our concerns are.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. And so that's also why, Mr. Chair, again, after hearing Deputy Warden's comments, we can amend that letter to include, make a stronger statement about blasting, about the impact, because we don't mention the distance. And we also didn't mention dust in the letter, so we could add those if directed to.
Councillor Garden-Cole, follow up?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that I don't support the increase in the size of it for those reasons that Deputy Warden mentioned, which means that I would be in favor of adding to that letter to support what he just said, in whatever that would look like. I guess that's, an area counselor might, he just defined the issues that they're having. I think that all those issues should be conveyed in the letter that we draft on behalf of those residents.
John, you have that?
So, Mr. Chair, so do you want us to state in the letter that council is recommending that the minister not approve the quarry expansion as opposed to just providing comments on the impacts? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I thought she was, wanted you to just make the letter stronger, emphasizing the concerns of the two counselors. Sandra?
So I'll clarify. If this letter is coming from council, then every counselor, has the opportunity to give their, opinion on what should be included in this letter. From my point, listening to what he's saying, how the residents feel, my opinion is that should be conveyed in the letter, what the residents are feeling. I'd be happy to hear what other, it's not just going to be what I think should be included in the letter. All the counselors can contribute to it, but that's just from me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Tingley?
Through the chair, just listening to Deputy Warden there, I don't know how many residents are involved here now that are affected and what the future effects would be, but I would be agreeable to advocating that they look for another location to have their quarry all together and close this. If that's the effect that it's having on residents now and the potential future development, sounds like a pretty strong position to take. But we're here to advocate for those residents that are living there, and if they're experiencing this kind of a problem, it's significant. That's my thought on it.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Warden Perry?
Yeah, I think, through you, Chair, to staff, I think one of the things is that the community is pretty much against this. If you look back here in council, we restricted times for people to harvest trees and do logging for certain hours because of the noise and because of the truck traffic, because it was impeding on a couple of homes. So we changed things for this. This rock crusher runs all the time. It goes they're in there hauling all year round. It doesn't stop for these residents. The truck traffic doesn't stop for the residents. Understanding with the increase of housing, you're going to need aggregate, but they have enough. Two years ago, they had an open house to explain the environmental assessment they paid for themselves, right, which is what went to the Department of Environment, that they had between 10 and 15 years of aggregate left, that they didn't need to do an expansion because they had 10 to 15 years. Well, in 10 to 15 years, they're going to be surrounded by homes. If you look at the development on Morning Breeze and you look at how the development from East Uniacke Road is pushing in, and there's talk of more development on Beamish Road. There's a couple people that bought land in there that are looking to do stuff. Well, that Beamish Road, you follow that K-class road, connects to Old Mines Road and goes right down and through. So you're going to see a change over the next 10 to 15 years. And you also got to look at people who are buying these homes. You go look at the price of what homes are selling for on Coxcomb Lake Road, 1.1 million, 875,000. And now their kids can't even go on the main road because there's so much truck traffic. So you really got to look at, when this was approved 10, 15, or 10 years ago, or whenever the original quarry was approved, wasn't looking forward to see the impacts of this in the grander scheme of things. Not saying the quarry are bad people, not saying the owners are bad people, but there's no business that generates any revenue for us in East Hants. There's nothing to tax other than resource because there's no buildings or structures. right? So the residents of East Hants aren't benefiting from this quarry, right? It's not like it's a $6 million business that's paying commercial tax and all the residents are benefiting from the quarry being there. Nobody's benefiting. The money is, that company is not located in East Hants, right? They pay a resource, they take it, and all their sales and everything don't affect anything for the residents. So the residents are receiving no benefit from this. And I will also mention, when the quarry initially went in, it was mandated they had to have a community board and a community committee. And there was people from the quarry were supposed to be on it, people from the road associations were there, and there was independent business owner that was supposed to kind of be in there as well. And that group has met very infrequently, to the point where it went 3 to 4 years, never met once. The residents wanted to meet and the meetings were never held. So some of the conditions of the initial granting of the quarry have not been met. And if you need, I can connect you with the person who is on that council to clarify that even more. It's just really something that's a hot button issue in my community. And, do I think anything we write here today is going to change the provincial government's mind with the way housing is? Probably not. But at least we have to voice the residents of East Hants, because this quarry provides no benefit and is only harming the lifestyles and the enjoyment of people of their own property. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Deputy. Councilor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So John, the Morning Breeze, we already approved those subdivisions, and it's almost a kilometer away from, so does it fall under the limit that it should be away from new homes or something?
I'm not sure. I know there's nothing within a kilometer. I'm not sure all the current development.
Oh, no,
plans-
there's nothing, but there's some approved for it to be there, so that's gonna affect those.
No, I think we looked at that and there wasn't any current plan for anything within a kilometer. The newer development I think you're talking about is like is below the, let me pull the map up. It would actually be off the map down here somewhere.
Yeah, so that's around 1.02 kilometers. I just did it on my computer, so.
That's, well, that's 800 meters to there. So that's definitely more than a kilometer.
Anyway, I agree with whatever the deputy warden said, and I have another 2 quarries in my district, and I hear a lot, so I don't know when it's gonna end up. Like, the province doesn't have to deal with anything. They just issue the permit, and we're the one that's stuck with it for many, many years to come, so. And the residents too, like, it's a tough one, and is there any way, like, if they even want to approve it, can they not go 10 folds, or like, if they approve it for 2 folds, maybe it's better than 10 times like the whole land.
Yeah.
Like, they could still be in business for another 15 years and deal with it when the community grow. So I don't know if that's something should write in a letter or something. This way we don't end up with 10-fold or nothing, so.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, there's a draft letter there, so we can make it stronger. We can recommend that the minister outright refuse the application. But again, it's not our process. All we can do is recommend.
Oh, I know, but is it okay, is it worth it in a letter if we say, like, if you decide to approve it, like, don't approve the tenfold, approve just probably double or whatever, like, can they do that? Like, I don't know.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so if you want to, in the letter, say, first of all, council doesn't support it being approved, and if you do, a 10 times expansion wouldn't be warranted, that, double or whatever. You can say whatever you want. It's, again, you're kind of like a reviewing agency here. You're providing information to another level of government that's going to make a decision.
Yeah, and we're looking like, we're working with staff on the Act of Transportation that border that lot, and those people walking there or something, they're not gonna be notified what's gonna happen there. And if you have an older person or somebody with heart problem or something and going next to it, and all of a sudden the blasts come in, so they might be killed there. So, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Anything else, Counselor?
Thank you.
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if John can just bring up the draft letter that was attached to the agenda. I guess we have some of what has been expressed over the years to planning staff in that letter about the quarry and through council comments. If there's anything that you would like to put specifically in this letter, we can add some wording to it and bring the letter back to council on council evening for your final consideration. But I guess we need somebody to make a motion to say how strongly you need the letter worded, or if you want specific information in there. So we talk, for example, in the letter about surface water, but we haven't talked about well water and the concerns of the residents around that. So, we talk about truck traffic in the letter. John's having some technical difficulties here getting it up on your screen, but it is attached to your agenda. So I guess we just need some direction before this letter gets sent off. There it is. And without wordsmithing, we can wordsmith it and bring it back to council, but if there's something in here you would like either stronger or specifically said, then we're looking for that direction today from committee.
Thank you. Madam Warden.
Thank you. Well, I think a stronger letter is certainly warranted, and I think it should have language in there that identifies under the current situation, dust mitigation is non-existent. And that the monitoring of truck traffic on the local roads is non-existent, and that it's currently hazardous for nearby residents. And to mention the concerns of homeowners about their wells and their inability to enjoy their properties. And that's under the existing permit. So that based on feedback that the municipality has received from the residents, we would have concerns of those issues, being even larger, being multiplied 10 times to what they are now, and that something should be in place to address the concerns of the people who live in the area, around surface water, well water, dust mitigation, truck traffic. Even, you could put hours of operation in there. I don't know. Can't hurt to mention it, but I'm sure that those crushers, there's a good chance they run 24 hours if the need's there for gravel. And I think, we don't get to say yay or nay. I guess we can ask the province to put as many conditions on it as possible. And I'm speaking as someone whose husband's made a living for rock quarries and you know, road construction work for many, many, many years. But I don't think I ever recall him working in an area where they caused undue hardship for the neighboring folks that live there. And if there were any complaints, the quarry owner certainly moved very quickly to address any concerns. And anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Deputy Warden Perry.
So just to expand through you, Chair, to staff, like the truck traffic through the whole community, because it's not just Uniacke Mines Road. It's the number 1 all the way down to the 101, and then it's Eder Road onto East Uniacke Road, and then up through Rawdon, because they all come through. Those are the main throughways, and then it also travels out the number 1 all the way down to South Rawdon, Eller's House, and beyond. So they go every direction. So the truck traffic isn't just located in one area. It is the entire community that gets affected. There are some people, I can say this, that already sold their homes in the last year and moved away purely based upon what they've experienced living there. So they move to a bedroom community to live a quiet life, and 3 to 4 times a year their house shaking and constant truck traffic running by. The roads, they can't sit on the front porch because all they hear is, air brakes going by all day long. So the quality of life impact, I think, is something that needs to be addressed here. And it affects more than just the local residents there. It affects a larger picture of people. But the warden worded a lot of it very, very well. And I mean, I've had discussions with the 3 MLAs over this issue as well already. And they are well aware that 90+% of their constituents are not for this. So I would say, those people are still going to be calling them as much as the Department of Environment over this. It is tricky because it's needed, right? Like wherever you build, you need this stuff. However, in the fact that it was at the end of a residential road to begin with, kind of probably they chose the wrong spot. And like Councillor Moose has said, there's 2 other quarries. Well, there's 2 other regulated ones, and then there's one that is being run by a private company in Mount Union.
There's one in South Southampton.
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's
They all
plenty.
travel through Mount Union.
There's plenty of aggregate, and there's increased truck traffic like you wouldn't believe, and just telling people this is life for the next 50 years. The longevity of this decision is also something that should be highlighted, that this impacts a community for 30 to 50 years. That's a long time.
So,
And I fully trust you guys to word it sternly, like the benefits, I don't believe, outweigh the negative impact that's there. Because the construction industry is the only people benefiting. There is no, like I said, East Hants receives 0 benefit other than our roads getting beaten down, our residents being unhappy, truck traffic, throughout the whole community, barreling right in front of our skate park, right through our school zones, every day, all day long. That's the other big concern. I think you get the picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I was just going to say when the letter was up there, that if in the intro to the letter, if it's defined that we are not supporting it due to the negative impacts on the residents, and then go through the points and then reiterate that again at the end of the letter. I think that would be effective so that before they even start reading all the points, they know where we stand on it. Thanks.
Thank you. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Councillor Garden Cole's point, I would like some firm direction in the form of a motion from committee that says that, we've written the letter to say we have the following comments, and we will add, to Councillor Perry's point, we can wordsmith that into the letter. I would like a firm motion that either says, the letter says council does not support this expansion, or council does support it with the following comments. Because I'm not sure, I've heard from, we've heard councillors in the room talk about it, but I don't want to put forward a firm opinion from council that we don't have support from this committee on.
Thank you. Councillor Eisner.
Thank you, Warden. Chairperson, sorry. How does that work out in the future, doing other decisions with the Department of Environment? We talk to them in other projects all the time. And they said, oh, you guys don't really like us doing this, so that could be a backlash. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I wouldn't be concerned about that. I think this is a standalone issue, and they're inviting comments, so I think that's fine.
Thank you. Deputy Warden Perry.
I'll put a motion out there that I would like to see our letter be worded that we are against the expansion of the quarry in Mount Uniacke. And it be reflected in both the intro and the exit, with the areas highlighted from discussion today as the background to why we're against it. I so move.
It's moved in second. Nobody wishing to speak? Question being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has been passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, John, staff. Also want to thank the public members for attending. That concludes the Planning Advisory Committee for today. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? We're adjourned. So we go right into policy? We're going to move right into council policy. Thanks for the company.
I don't have a paper copy of that agenda. Hey, staff, are we ready to move to our policy and in-camera session of council? Thank you. I would call the meeting to order. We have before us a number of contractual and land issues today, all of which require in-camera discussion. So at this time, I would be looking for a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor McPhee, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that we go in camera. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. We will give staff time to make the adjustments. contractual and land issues. Out of those discussions, we have a number of motions coming forward. The first one is around active transportation on Highway 14, and who's going to make that motion? Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, I'll move that the approved budget for capital project 20035, active transportation Highway 214, be set at $2,491,392 with a maximum funding available from the ICIP up to $1,253,334, $750,300 from AT reserves, $132,985 from local improvement charges, and the remaining funding to be 43% USR sidewalk balloon payment reserve and 57% GTR 2023, 2024 surplus or contingency reserve.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mitchell.
Question?
The question has been called. And the motion has passed by a vote of 10-1 with Councillor Rhino voting nay. Next motion is around Lakeland's open space driveway encroachment. Who's taking that one? Councillor Garden-Cole.
Just before I do, should it include the shed being moved? No? Okay. Move that council authorize the CAO to execute a temporary access easement over a portion of Lot P in favor of PID 45132834 and a right-of-way easement over a small portion of Lot P in favor of PID 45132834 that would include a mutually agreed upon completion date.
Second.
Seconded by the Deputy Warden. Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Next, the Walton Wharf and Breakwater. I believe that's Councillor Green.
Move that council declare PIDs 45336922, 451-49093, and 453-47036 surplus to municipal needs. I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Hibb.
Question.
The question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Next item, E.H. Horn disposal update. Who's taking this one? Councillor Rhino.
Can do it. I move the council authorize the CEO to execute an easement over Convent Road in favor of the infield water tower property, PID 451-47766.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded. Moved and seconded. Question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. And there was a
Also,
Okay, go ahead.
also move the council authorize the CEO to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale with E.H. Horn School Preservation Society for $1 for 247 Highway 2 infield, PID 451-47766, following a successful public hearing. The agreement is to include a right of first refusal and buyback covenants in favor of East Hants. I so move.
We have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Green. Question's been called. The motion is passed unanimously. And councillors, I believe that that concludes the business of our meeting this afternoon. So I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved by Councillor Rhino, seconded by Councillor Musa. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.